Production and distribution of City Club forums on IdeaStream are made possible by the generous support of PNC and the Raskin Family Fund, with additional funding from Cleveland State University, Robert Conrad, and the Payne Fund.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. And welcome to the City Club of Cleveland. I'm Ralph Delarada, Jr. I'm a member of the Board of Trustees of Kent State University and a past president of the City Club Board. It's great to be back, and especially to be here to introduce my dear friend, today's speaker, Dr. Beverly J. Warren, the president of Kent State University. Over its long history, the City Club has a proud tradition of welcoming recently appointed Ohio college and university presidents to the stage to share their thoughts as well as their vision for the future of higher education and for our region. We're pleased to have Dr. Warren share her perspectives with us today. Kent State University was founded in 1910 after the passage of the Lowry Act, which called for the establishment of two state normal schools, the Ohio State Normal School, or college rather, at Kent, an institution focused on training public school teachers, and Bowling Green State Normal School, which is now Bowling Green State University. Normal schools, by the way, are what teachers' colleges were called a century ago. By the 1930s, the college developed into a comprehensive university, and in 1935 changed its name to Kent State University. Dr. Beverly J. Warren was named the 12th president of Kent State on July 1st, 2014, after serving as provost and senior vice president at Virginia Commonwealth University. She is one of only 4 female presidents leading institutions of higher education in the state of Ohio. Dr. Warren is an internationally respected and widely published scholar in the fields of education and exercise physiology. Her most recent research focused on urban education, including access and success for urban youth, the preparation of teachers for urban environments, and coordination of education through P through 20 initiatives. That refers to initiatives articulating common goals from preschool through college completion. Dr. Warren is a fellow of the American College of Sports Medicine, was elected to its Board of Trustees in 2004, and is a former president of its Southeast chapter. A North Carolina native, Dr. Warren earned a Bachelor of Science degree from the University of North Carolina at Greensboro and a Master of Science degree from Southern Illinois University. She holds 2 doctorates, an EDD in Administration of Higher Education from the University of Alabama, and a Ph.D. in Exercise Physiology from Auburn University. Today, Dr. Warren presides over an institution comprised of 8 campuses with more than 41,000 undergraduate and graduate students from more than 111 countries. With nearly 6,800 employees, it is the #1 producer of college graduates in Northeast Ohio, with an alumni network that exceeds 230,000 individuals. As one of the largest university systems in the nation, Kent State is listed prominently among the top 100 public universities by U.S. News and World Report. In her first 2 years at the helm, Dr. Warren has led a campus-wide rebranding effort that established collaborations with other Ohio universities and facilitated more connectivity between the university's 8 campuses. Ladies and gentlemen, members and friends of the City Club of Cleveland, please join me in a warm welcome for Dr. Beverly J. Warren.
First thing I always worry about is the podium, but I hope you can see me over the transom here. It's just a delight to be invited by the City Club to just have a discussion with you today, and I've really been looking forward to that. I was able to speak here in my first year about a vision for Kent State University. Today is going to be a little more provocative. I've already been asked the question, what is your topic about? So hopefully it will spur some conversation, because I really think that is the hallmark of the City Club and its purpose here in this iconic city. Ralph, thank you so much. Really appreciate your support and your leadership on the board. Ralph is our vice chair, and he holds us to a very high standard in terms of our performance at Kent State University, so I'm so grateful for that. I also want to thank the City Club, and particular Stephanie Jansky. She has been so very helpful in setting things up and making sure we were accommodated, so thank you so very much. It's really exciting that this is also part of a live broadcast, so that we can have this global, at least conversation that will hopefully stem us forward in how we might be more collaborative partners in the future. I'm just excited to be a part of this moment in time. We have a satellite program here in the city of Cleveland, right in downtown Cleveland, and that makes us really, I think, great partners with this fine city. It's also a city that's been recognized by Forbes magazine as the hottest city in America. That's pretty cool. And it's made even hotter by the success of the Cavs and, oh my gosh, the Tribe. So even through the heartache of Wednesday night, I think the Cleveland Indians gave us a really great Cleveland Indian summer. You know, when I think of the Cleveland Indians, they are a gritty, never-give-up team. They leave everything they have on the field. When you see some of those pictures after the Wednesday night game, you could just see the exhaustion of having given everything they've got. And I think that represents what they do for this city and how this city performs as well. And as a matter of fact, in that same article of Forbes magazine, they described Cleveland as a gritty underdog city. And that Cleveland is actually luring young talent away from places like Boston, Austin, Texas, the Silicon Valley. And I think we see that every day as the enthusiasm rises. I think you should also know that Cleveland is a mecca for our graduates from Kent State University, many of whom call Cleveland home. So we feel that great partnership with you, because we really think that at Kent State, we're also this gritty kind of underdog university. And we're so proud to claim Northeast Ohio as our home. I think we're a perfect example of the work of Northeast Ohio in reaching out our arms to make sure that everyone has a chance at an education. As Ralph said, we're an 8-campus system with more than 40,000 students, and our footprint really spans a section of Northeast Ohio larger than the state of Connecticut. It's hard to believe. It's from the shore of Lake Erie to the border of the Ohio River. We are in 8 communities trying to make a difference each and every day. And we're in those communities trying to provide young people, and not so young people, the opportunity to make a difference and to improve their lives and the lives of their families. And so we're so very pleased about that. The primary goal of my remarks today is to share with you my belief in the essential role that higher education plays in a thriving democracy. We're truly blessed in this region to have extraordinary universities, and we really work together. We perform miracles every day together, often singularly, many collaboratively. But I'm particularly grateful for the partnership with Ron Berkman. Ron has been such a great partner, a great confidant for a new president, showed me the ropes when I needed to know those ropes, and I'm forever grateful, Ron, for your support. You know, and as a secondary goal today, I did want to share with you some of my ideas about a reimagined public research university and what that might look like, and what Kent State's vision is to be a very vital part in reimagining what we're all about as a research university. I've been exploring those questions about why do we exist? What do we stand for? What is the legacy of Kent State in bettering society? And how will we make a difference in a world that so desperately needs reasoned and inspiring voices? And I think particularly in a vacuum of biased rhetoric that makes the bar so low for a nation that has such high aspirations about the ideals of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And I think you only need to look at our presidential election to know that we have our work cut out for us to improve on the negativity and really move forward in a meaningful way and in a partnership way where we all feel like we contribute and where we all feel like we've been heard. So in this reimagined public research university, we will emphasize the preparation of the next generation of leaders. They are going to be the individuals sitting at the City Club in the future. And we hope we can ensure the right focus with the right disposition to really better society. And I think we can do that by embracing this idea that academic excellence, access, and affordability not only coexist in a reimagined research university, but they actually are the critical elements that really provide a high-quality, distinctive learning environment. And at Kent State, we're calling that the Kent State Promise. And you often hear of promise agendas as being purely financial, a financial pathway to achieve a college degree. But the challenges that students face now aren't necessarily only and singularly financial. I suggest that the cost of college and the very real problem of growing student debt are results of an incomplete higher education agenda. And the tragedy is not so much that young people graduate with some level of debt, but that many graduate with that level of debt or higher, and they never do graduate and receive a degree, not even an associate's degree. That really then makes a cycle of debt most likely. Now, it's important to really think about the affordability of college, and I know that you have been really interested in how we in Northeast Ohio are trying to cut costs and really help students achieve that dream of college. But I think it's also important for us to meet the challenges and career expectations for a future that we can't possibly predict. So we're preparing young people for jobs that don't yet exist. And we're actually preparing young people for jobs they don't know they're going to take. Who can predict their future even 5 years from now, much less a decade from now? And so where do we go from here with that idea of really the prime role and outcome of a research university is to graduate more students who have the skills, talent, and desire to change the world. And that they understand that a life of meaning is just as important as a life of financial comfort. And how you balance those aspirations, I think, are critically important. And I think it's important that in those 4 years that they are with us, and yes, Ron and I are convinced that we can do it in 4 years, it's important that we provide that environment for that exploration. So as I was thinking about that, it brought me to a book by Cornell University's Robert Sternberg. And it's called What Universities Can Be. And he centers his ideas on how do you produce students who want to change the world. And he calls this an ACT-CEL university as an acronym. The active, concerned, citizenship, and ethical leadership type of university. And so what I love about Sternberg's book is one of his quotes, because he said the focus of our universities should be not just on how academically smart you are, but how you use your smartness and give it back to the world. And so we believe this approach for research universities is central to our mission. It's central to what we do. We cannot simply conduct research in a vacuum. It must be engaged research. It must be research that matters. And it must involve undergraduate students all the way through the spectrum of our graduate programs. So simply put, just as a city club, its mission is to create conversations of consequence that help democracy thrive. Kent State's mission is to prepare college-educated citizens who can take part in and lead those discussions in the future. Our history and our vision for the future places us right in the core of that expectation, and we really carry it with what I call a singular responsibility. Because all of you in the room know that our history includes a day in early May, nearly 50 years ago, when students at that time were very concerned about the worldview, and particularly our impending invasion in Cambodia. And so, as you know, with that unthinkable tragedy and the loss of lives at May 4th, 1970, it took us decades to really grapple and deal with that loss, and how do we recover from that loss, and how do we use that loss for good. And so recently, we have been talking about this sense that one of our English professors, David Hassler, said, we are learning to heal by speaking through the wounds. And I think that is the essence of a Kent State University. That through thoughtful collaboration, through dialogue, we are actually collecting and sharing ideas and reflections and perspectives about May 4th and its aftermath. And fast forward to today, our May 4th site is under strong consideration to become a National Historic Landmark. And we're so very proud of that, and we think that it's the right thing to do. But what I think is most important is that we move from national landmark to one of a global convener for the world's critical conversations. And we see this as not one of chest-pounding boasting about who we are, but a deep, deep commitment to elevating the importance of crucial conversations and having those conversations on some of the most troubling issues of our time. And as a global convener, we have many areas of Kent State that can really contribute to a rich conversation. We have the May 4th Visitor Center, and I invite you to come and take part in that center if you've not. We have an Institute for the Study and Prevention of Violence. We have many faculty who have produced documents and documentaries that have received national awards. And so we're going to use that expertise to really leverage the conversations we need to have. And the conversations, while fearful, taking courage, we need to have them. And we need to have them in a way that we can articulate our point of view and be passionate about that point of view, but also with a keen desire to listen to the point of view of others, even when you disagree. That aspiration, I think, is a cornerstone of 21st century education and certainly the cornerstone of research universities. Because what we've realized that just as it is important to have a major, to really think about where you're headed with your life and what your career aspirations might be, we also know at places like Kent State, it's important to develop those 21st century skills that you learn perhaps most clearly outside of your major. Critical thinking, creativity, communication, collaboration. When I talk with CEOs and future employers of our graduates, they say it's these skills that they feel are the most important to have an impact in the workforce. And so what we are trying to do is to address that so that at Kent State University, when you declare a major as a freshman, you must also declare your purpose. What do you think your purpose in life? What is the meaning in life for you? Now think about being 18 years old and being asked that question. It takes a while. And we also say you can write that meaning in pencil, because indeed it might change. But really trying to link, why are you majoring in a certain field, we think must be linked to the passion for wanting to make a difference and how you're going to make that difference with your life and your career. And so we do this in the educational process, and we also have a requirement for experiential learning. Ron and I both know how important it is that a portfolio that involves internships, co-ops, undergraduate research experiences, field experiences, study abroad experiences really enrich a person's life and makes them much more ready to be a contributor right out of the gate. We think that's so, so vitally important. And finally, we ask students to give back to service in their communities while they are at Kent, because we think shaping the habit and the mindset that if you want to change the world, you must engage in the world. And we do that from the freshman year through the senior year. We have banners on our campus that say, "Unknow your boundaries." Because during the 4 years of an engaged college experience, we want our students to test their limits. We want them to try their hand at new ideas. We want them to do something that requires courage, requires them to step out of a comfort zone, because we know that the greatest learning occurs when that occurs. And so we want students to grow both personally and professionally, and that we know this takes time, and that they do need a safe environment in which we all know it's a learning process. It's not a safe environment from challenging conversations. It's not a safe environment from ideas that individuals might find offensive, different than their own. It's a safe space where we can create the idea that you can disagree without being disagreeable. You can learn to hear your voice, strengthen your voice, because it's strengthened when you hear the other side. And you can clearly then better articulate your point of view. So for example, if we would all dialogue with one another, listen to similar channels on the TV during the election cycle, we might learn from one another, right? But we tend to listen and participate in conversations with people of like mind. And I think in a college environment, really pushing to ensure that people have conversations with individuals who don't have a like mind, who feel very, very differently about issues and perspectives. And so we want our students to lay claim to a point of view and be able to articulate it and defend it. But to never forget that there's also a listening skill to that. And listening to other perspectives strengthens your own perspective, or it should. And so we've seen this as really energizing and life-changing for our students. And I think it does prepare them for a world that so desperately needs individuals to speak their mind while respecting others to do the same. So this isn't always easy. It's complicated. It's not without conflict. It's often a messy environment. You have to make some decisions. You have to do the best you can. Because sometimes our faculty members make headlines for their controversial stances on international issues. Sometimes our students test their boundaries by protesting the administration's point of view. Invited speakers come to campus that have very, very different viewpoints than a student may have. I've been asked to cancel invited speakers. I've been asked to censor language or information. And what we're trying to do is to keep the door open for dialogue, to value the freedom of speech and free expression of ideas, but also to know that we do that in an environment with civil discourse, the ability to communicate, and I think in universities, we're able to manage those quite well. We're a campus known for student activism. I could tell you the story of my first year, but I'll just begin with, there was a protest at my first commencement. There was a protest at my State of the University address. There was a protest at my holiday party. 6 faculty came to my first faculty reception at the holiday time. There was a protest at my May commencement, and there was a protest at my inauguration. That is Kent State. And we respect the right for those individuals to really have a voice and to share that voice. It's also faculty with key dispositions that can really exemplify meaningful voice. I think of professors like Gary Hansen and Mitch McKinney, who have a storytelling course, an international storytelling course, in which they take a group of students to a country, a selected international destination. They reside in that country for 2 weeks, engaging with students from a university in that destination country and sharing stories and developing those shared stories. And when they return to campus, they put forth a multimedia program on the website that shares those experiences. So an example of that is those students that I've mentioned went to the island of Cyprus this past summer. These students were able to develop stories about refugee camps. There was a nursing strike that they were able to report. There was an idea around women in leadership in Cyprus that they were able to participate in that discussion. And that's the kind of international experience we're talking about. I've had some individuals say, Bev, why do study abroad? It's a vacation for students. It's costly and it's worthless because you need to keep those students in Northeast Ohio. They need to stay here. I think if I could share those stories of what transformative experiences they are. And in the 6 years since the program started, more than 100 students have participated in that. And they come from countries in Korea, Brazil, India, China, the Baltics. And this summer, they're going to Ghana. I wouldn't call that a vacation. So I think it has much meaning for us. We have another researcher, Jim Tyner, who is an internationally renowned geographer. He and his colleagues have a National Science Foundation grant to travel to Cambodia and try to identify and map the area around the occupied Khmer Rouge regime. And they have tracked more than 10,000 kilometers of canals and dikes and reservoirs and dams. And what they're finding is that in that environment that was created during war, that environment can also create havoc in a free world, in a not a war-torn world, because it affects food and water insecurity by the decisions that were made during the wartime. Jim is cooperating with the May 4th Visitor Center, and I find that quite interesting. And that, I think, is also vintage Kent State. You know, we're doing a lot in research as well. And what I think research universities can do is to provide this really platform for inquiry and really finding solutions for some of the most intractable challenges of our time. I think at a research university, we also know that those challenges are not resolved in singular isolation. It requires interdisciplinary work. It requires collaboration. It requires us to work together from different perspectives to come up with the solutions. We have Vice President Paul DiCarletto here with us today. I'm so glad Paul left the Cleveland Clinic and saw the wisdom to come to Kent State. So Paul and I have talked about the importance of interdisciplinary centers. And we're going to create 5 of those centers, starting out with brain health, with some of our researchers who are at the cutting edge of Alzheimer's disease, cutting edge of traumatic stress disorders, the cutting edge of the use of mindfulness and meditation on reducing chronic illness. There's a lot of work to do there. We actually then collaborate with partners like Cleveland State, NeoMed, to make sure that it's not just Kent State exploring those issues, but it's all of Northeast Ohio exploring those issues and beyond. I think if you look at another area, we will push forward with an Advanced Materials Institute. Now, you probably recognize and know about our Liquid Crystal Institute. But let me tell you the kind of collaboration that is really powerful. Just recently, the Liquid Crystal Institute partnered with our fashion school and our College of Podiatric Medicine to really develop this temperature sensing sock for diabetics, so that when diabetics are unable to feel their lower limbs, they have triggers from liquid crystals in the socks to give them notice that there's danger and to get help. That's the kind of research that makes a difference in real lives. I'm sure you are well aware of our center, the Cleveland Urban Design Center. Much work has been done. Ron and I partner in that idea of how do we help improve place, a sense of place, improving the quality of our place. And so I'm sure you've heard of the Step Up Downtown Plan. That was a collaboration with the CUDC, with others in Cleveland, the Downtown Cleveland Alliance. And as I understand it, we have about 18 ideas of how to take residences and link them to cultural areas and green space areas to improve the quality of the living experience for the downtown residents of Cleveland. That's work that makes a difference. That's work that gives back. I think it's work that can change the world. And so as you're thinking about how that is articulated, what does change the world mean? There was a handout I think, when you signed in. I'm looking at some people on my table to say, did it show up? Okay, I see it. Thanks, Mark. And in that handout, and for those listening in, it's a handout on what our students and alumni are doing in the way that follows their passion, but also makes a difference in serving others. In that handout, you'll see Tessa Reeves. She's a 2013 graduate from Kent State University. Tessa was a fashion design major at Kent State. She really thought she was going to New York City and light up the lights of the fashion world in New York. But what she found when she graduated is that's really not what she wanted to do with her life. She wanted to make a difference, and she wasn't sure she could do that in New York. So Tessa founded Neighbors Apparel in Akron. And this is a business she created, and she employs immigrants whose native culture was a part of fashion design, was a part of developing garments. And she employs those immigrants in her Neighbors Apparel store. And her life's purpose is to make an important statement about the gift of immigrants and the skills and talents they can bring to the neighborhoods. You'll see in that packet again that Chinyere Ikichi is a 1997 graduate of Kent State. Chinyere went on from community health education and integrated life sciences to work in the Centers for Disease Control in Atlanta. She is now the senior public health analyst at the CDC, and she travels the world over to try to reduce devastating spread of disease. She was at the forefront in the Ebola crisis, traveling across the globe to try to control the outspread of Ebola. I would say that's giving back. I would say it's borderline changing the world. If you look at another one of those stories, Carrie Richmond is a current student at Kent State. Carrie is a person who grew up in foster care. And over 4 years, she drifted from home to home to home. And that never left her mind. Again, Carrie was one that thought fashion design was going to be her niche. And if you see Carrie and her stylish way, you would say you were right about that interest and talent. But she chose public relations because what she wants to do is to make the world better for foster children. And so at Kent State, she was able to really have an internship, only 12 in the country given out, to work with the Congressional Coalition on Adoption Institute. And through Senator Portman's office, Carrie developed a white paper policy report on foster care, and she presented that report before Congress in the summer before her senior year. That, I think, is a pathway toward difference making. And it makes so very much of a difference making. And there's so many others that I could share. Those are just a few examples of how the faculty and students are really thinking about meaningful voice and how you translate that meaningful voice for good. I think there are a few places like Kent State who can explore that more deeply or more emotionally than our university. because we do believe that you can disagree without being disagreeable, that we can create opportunities to have a dialogue, that we're not afraid to have the crucial conversations. And it's that part of the Kent State promise that I think is so exciting. It causes us then to think about merging academic excellence, but also making sure we are attentive to access and affordability so more students can have that experience. At Kent State, and I know, Ron, at Cleveland State, our door is wide open. Our door is not narrow. We accept a broad swath of individuals who have a dream and just want the chance to live it out. Our goal is to make sure those who we let in the front door, we get them to the finish line of a college degree. And I think that's so very important. I think our students are translating purpose and passion into meaningful voice across a wide spectrum of disciplines and fields. I think the Kent State Promise also means that we're responsible to be a part of the economic vitality of this region, and we can't do that alone. But we do that through meaningful conversations. We do that by taking the time to reach out. It's so much easier just to work in your silo. It takes a lot of effort to work across disciplines and also across universities. But I've never been at a place like Northeast Ohio in terms of how that is done so well, and it has been so valued by this community. And so I'm proud to be a part of that. I think there's a remarkable sense of optimism at Kent State University. We have 10 years of record enrollment growth. I think a part of that is that students know that when they come to Kent State University, they won't be a number. Yes, we're large, but they won't be a number at Kent State University. Faculty members know their students. Faculty members engage their students. I was just recently handed a brochure of the number of study abroad opportunities that were faculty-led. There are literally more than 50 opportunities from winter to spring to summer for our students to really partner with a faculty member doing meaningful work in a study abroad experience. That changes lives. It changes lives for the good. And I think that is what really keeps me energized every day. I have a passion for higher education, if you haven't decided about that. I've lived it my whole life. But seeing students come in without any idea what they want to do and leave with a sense of purpose and a degree, and many and oftentimes a job right out of the gate. That's what is so invigorating to see. But our students also know it's not the first job that's important. It's the jobs of a lifetime. I would ask you in this room, how many of you are doing exactly what you thought you were going to do when you were 21? I'm not sure many people can raise their hands, and most often they're accountants and teachers, because that's what you do for your career in a lifetime. Most of us take advantage of opportunities. Most of us keep retooling with lifelong learning and take advantage of where we see opportunities to give back. So that's what I love about higher education. That's what I mean by meaningful voice. And I hope that we will all approach our work with the spirit of the Cleveland Indians, because I think that spirit defines this wonderful community. So thank you for letting me be a part of it for just a moment of time, and I really appreciate being with you today.
Today we're enjoying, I have to move this up a little bit, sorry. We're enjoying a Friday forum with Dr. Beverly J. Warren, president of Kent State University. We're about to begin the audience Q&A. We welcome questions from everyone, City Club members, guest students, or those of you joining us via our radio broadcast, webcast, or our new live simulcast at the Parma Snow branch of the Cuyahoga County Public Library. If you'd like to tweet a question, please tweet it at the City Club. and our staff will work it into the program. We want to remind you that your questions should be brief and to the point. Holding the microphones today are Content Coordinator Teddy Eisenberg and Director of Programming Stephanie Jansky. May we have the first question, please?
President Warren, my question is, I have a 12-year-old son, and my youngest son, so he'll be going to college in about 6-7 years. And will the classroom be the way they are, or are we going to have open classrooms where through internet the education will be, or do we need all the buildings that we have, or how is that going to change between now and, let's say, 10 years or 5 years from now?
And that's an excellent question that I don't think neither Ron nor I know the complete answer to how the classroom will change in the next decade. What is certain is that it will change. It's already changing. We have, I'm sure you're aware of, flipped classrooms. And we're moving in that direction from the type of education that you and I might have received, where we had lecturers and we took notes, and then we came back and took a test, and most of us lived our academic life that way. That's rarely what you see in the classroom even today. What you see are professors saying, the content that you need, I can place online. When we come together, we need to have those conversations. We need to really explore the innuendos of the material that you've been presented. So it's no more lecture-driven, PowerPoint-driven. It's much more about meaningful dialogue in the classroom. I think we'll see more distance learning, hybrid learning. We need to take advantage. If we need to educate another 1.7 million and have 1.7 million degrees by 2025, we can't do it in the current environment. So we're going to have to think of ways that we can virtually offer programs. Many of us do that very, very well at the master's level, and I think that's important. But we can do hybrid courses. We can do some total degree programs online in an undergraduate environment. And you'll be surprised to know that most students who take an online course at Kent State University are taking it from their residence hall right there on campus. But what it does allow them to do is to take more hours, because they can take that online course at 2 a.m. when they're at their best. And so I think you'll see, trying to accommodate the young millennial way of learning, it's multidisciplinary, it's multimedia, it's multi-stimulation, and I think we have to get better at that so that we really provide a quality platform for these young people who are just incredible.
President Warren, thank you very much for your leadership. I'm a product of Kent State.
Go Flashes.
Thank you. With the help of my brother, I came to Kent State with no English, and I learned English at ESL program at Kent State and did my undergraduate at Kent State. And I've been here since. But my question is about the international student body. Would you please talk about that briefly? And also, is there any concern about college graduation these days? So we hear that a lot, so if you don't mind
College
talking.
graduation related to international students?
International
or
or in general? Thank you.
Those are two very different questions. Well, let's take the first one. We have really focused on the value of increasing the number of international students at Kent State. So we have more than 3,000 international students. And if you look at that by percentage, we have the largest percentage of international students of any institution in Ohio. So it's a strong value for us. And I think you heard Ralph say we have students coming from 111 countries. So we're really looking at that diverse opportunity, because you know what? Many of our Kent State students' international experience may be relating to international students on their own campus. So we think it's extremely important. One of the things we think we must do better is to make that experience as powerful as we can for our international students, many who come with language barriers, certainly with cultural differences. And how do we really accommodate a greater experience? So 2 examples of what we're doing. One is one of our students from India tweeted to me that he just had such remorse that we didn't have cricket. And we thought about that, and I shared it with our academic affairs team, and they said, we can start a cricket club. So now we have a cricket club, and American students are really part of the cricket club, and it's been a delightful addition to having a cricket club at Kent State. The other thing we've done is at homecoming, we have a whole week of homecoming activities, and we have an international homecoming so that these students can experience international cultures and food in a homecoming experience. And so I think we're trying to do more of that so that there's much more of an engaged experience for our international students. Because when we look at the graduation of our students, international students do become somewhat of an at-risk population. So many barriers to overcome, additional credits with the ESL. And so we're really trying to provide some support structures for international students so that we make that ease of transition easier and that we make returning every year easier. In terms of entire student population, we all have a ways to go. Our graduation rate is about 55% for 6 years. That's the national average. We've actually improved our graduation rate. I think we all will because we are much more focused on the support structures that get students to the finish line. And so one of the things that Ron and all of the other presidents in the IUC are doing is, what are the many things that we can do to ease the barriers to graduation? More than 120 credits for an undergraduate degree. How can we make sure that we reduce that to what we know is absolutely required? How do we provide completion college funds? I know Ron will agree with me that many students drop out with 90 hours or more because they just aren't able to pull the resources together. And as a matter of fact, we call them up when they're in good standing and they haven't registered yet, and we say, why are you not returning? Well, I've got a parking ticket, I can't afford to pay the parking ticket, and my registration is blocked. We have scholarships for that. And there are ways to help students get to the finish line. So I think we are very cognizant of trying to increase our graduation rates, and we have a number of structures in place. Thanks for asking.
Thank you. Hi. When you you talked about freedom of speech and protest and respectful protest, but what are some ways that either you as a president or you as a college or any university can encourage freedom of speech and protest without sometimes the unattractive or unintended consequences of actions that come out of impassioned speech, whether it's Latina issues, whether it's Mideast issues or the presidential? How do you encourage? You talk about respect, but what are some ways that you can actually encourage respectful, especially the consequences of that protest?
Right. Thanks for asking. The environment at universities is a microcosm of what we see in the world. And so oftentimes, the dialogue and rhetoric that is occurring, and it's often hostile in the world in general, migrates, seeps into the life at a university. One of the things that I think we're able to do is to really be alert. And once you see a particular crisis occurring, address it early and address it with transparency. And so some things that we've done is very basic message from the president that will say a respect for the right to hold those values, but perhaps abhorring the rhetoric. We often, in those times, I'll take the University of Missouri student crisis with the Missouri happenings with the police and the loss of young black lives. As soon as that occurred, and you could see a sweep of protest activism all across universities, we opened up fora. We had forums for our students to gather together. We know this is a troubling time. We know these are troubling circumstances. We know that often you feel unsafe. Let's gather together and have that conversation. And we're able to pull together an idea to have the conversation. Oftentimes it's a fearfulness. Oftentimes it is an anger that we feel the world isn't fair, that we feel that some things that are happening are not just. But if you provide a forum for those feelings to be expressed, it can go a long, long way. And so I think that's identify early, address it publicly, and then offer opportunities. And I hate to use the word safe space because I think it gets such a negative connotation, but it is a safe space for young people to really say, I'm angry and I don't know what to do with that anger. I'm fearful and I don't know what to do with that fear. We've done things like have our City of Kent Police and our Kent State Police have breakfast with a cop and having opportunities for that dialogue. So there are so many things a university can do to bring people together to have the discussions. And when you do that, young people begin to find their voice in a way that doesn't require them to have to protest or to move protest to anger.
Dr. Warren, the federal government recently issued some guidelines that call for teacher preparation programs to be evaluated partly on the basis of student test scores of the products that the teachers that graduated from those programs. As a former dean of an education college and as an educator and a president of a university that has a college of education, I'm curious as to whether you have a point of view on that kind of linkage.
Yeah. I think Ohio particularly has been a state that has held universities in general accountable for their outcomes. And I think that is a positive. Ron and I aren't fearful of being evaluated by our outcomes, not our input, how many students did you enroll, how many students did you graduate, and how many of those students did you graduate on time. I think as it relates to teacher preparation, there should be some form of accountability. But I think accountability in a vacuum isn't the right answer as well. I think there should be a holistic evaluation of the teachers in our systems. And yes, one way is to evaluate the outcome. Another way is to look at the resources, look at where those teachers are teaching, give those teachers the support they need. So my belief is that accountability is vitally important, but it can't exist in a vacuum.
Opinion on how employers and universities should collaborate with one another?
Okay. We think that's one of the things that we can do better, particularly here in Northeast Ohio. And so one of the things that we can do better is rather than waiting until the junior year or the senior year to have an internship experience, have that experience early. Because so oftentimes young people get to their internship and they say, oh, this isn't what I really thought it was going to be and I don't like it. So I think having really experiential learning cut across freshman year to senior year is important. I think inviting businesses on campus to really have dialogue with students is really important. I just met with our Department of Biological Sciences yesterday, and they were saying that they really invite physicians in the area to come and talk to our pre-med students to get a feel for what the options are out there so that students can make better choices as they go through their academic preparation. I think there are ways to partner financially. How might we have co-op experiences where a business is really getting the benefit of a young person's expertise before they even graduate? And our student is gaining by being financially supported by that company. At my former institution, we did that exceptionally well in our College of Engineering. And I would love to see something like that scale where businesses will work with us to help make college more affordable, give experience that's going to be powerfully important in the first resume of a young person, and then perhaps even have that young person employed before they even graduate. So I think those are some ideas.
I'll introduce myself, Rainey Grover from Cuyahoga Community College. Thank you for your talk today. So I only introduced myself because this is a self-serving question. Your 5 centers that you talked about, I'm interested in how we can connect our Cuyahoga Community College students with those centers, and a number of our students are already matriculating to KSU, and Kent State rather, how do we encourage more of them to head your way?
Oh, excellent question. So the 5 centers are in their early iteration. And they are going to be centers of interdisciplinary research collaboration. So what we think can happen throughout Northeast Ohio is once we form the institute, where our faculty convene. They have a home department, but they convene in the center for their interdisciplinary work. Those faculty at Kent State are already engaging their undergraduate students in that research enterprise. So one idea that just comes to the top of mind, we started for the first time this summer, a summer undergraduate research experience. And students were able to spend 8 weeks totally in a research environment, which we financially supported their 8-week stay at Kent State. In my former institution, we were able to invite students who are considering matriculating to Kent State for that same summer experience. There's another really federally funded project called the McNair Scholars, which really brings undergraduate students from underserving institutions to a campus to really think about doctoral work. And so I think there are ways that we can do that. I would love for you to be able to help connect what are the strong scholars, researchers at Cuyahoga Community College that would have an interest in brain health or community population health, or we're having one of global understanding. Where there's interest, we can have that kind of dialogue to invite for seminars, to invite then for even participation on proposal development.
Today at the City Club, we've been enjoying a Friday forum with Dr. Beverly J. Warren, president of Kent State University. We certainly welcome today guests at tables hosted by Bostwick Design Partnership, Cleveland State University, Kent State University, Key Bank, and Medical Mutual. We thank all of you for being here. And that brings us to the end of today's forum. So thank you, Dr. Warren. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. The forum is now adjourned.
For information on upcoming speakers or for podcasts of the City Club, go to cityclub.org.
Production and distribution of City Club forums on IdeaStream are made possible by the generous support of PNC and the Raskin Family Fund, with additional funding from Cleveland State University, Robert Conrad, and the Payne Fund.